It's time to execute it and take care of the ball offense. It's time, man. We want to win the ring. It's time. It's time. It's time, Amanda. It's time.
It's time. It's time.
Welcome back to your Valley Sports Plugs Phoenix Suns recap for March 27th through April 14th, 2024. I'm Chris Patrick. That's Michael Benjamin, and we're here to break it all down for you. Let's start off by taking a look at the last 10 games of the regular season. Mike, what did we see from the Phoenix Suns?
Chris, I can't believe it. We're already at the end of this season. It's been a crazy one. So let's get through this kind of quick because I know we got a lot to touch on today. But let's go all the way back to Wednesday, March 27th, as Phoenix heads back for the final clash of the season against the defending champion Denver Nuggets. And this time they take another one in the Mile High, 104-97 behind KD's 30-15. Then it was on the way to OKC, where those young kids were too much, even without MVP candidate Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, as Oklahoma City wins 128-103. Then Devin Booker exploded for another 50-plus point performance in the Bayou as the Suns downed the Pelicans 124-111. Then the Suns flew home and dominated the Cavaliers, even with Donovan Mitchell making his return 122-101. And Minnesota, they had the clamps put on them in an incredible defensive performance in Footprint Center, 97-87. And in the next one, Zion was just too much as the Pelicans outlast the Suns 113-105. And in the regular season finale at Footprint Center, the Suns are blasted by the Clippers with no Kawhi or James Harden, 105-92. In the final 3-game stretch of the season, the Suns barely pull it out against the Clippers, who sat pretty much their entire team, 124-108. Then they pull out a gutsy fourth quarter comeback with a huge Bradley Beal stop against the Kings, 108-107. And when they needed everything to go their way, the Suns put on a dominating performance, taking an early 22-point lead in Minnesota and never relinquishing 125-106. That win, combined with the Pelicans' loss to the Lakers, propels the Suns into the 6th spot in the Western Conference and slates a matchup against the Minnesota Timberwolves for the first round of the 2024 NBA playoffs. But Chris, before we get into a quick preview of the first round, I got to know your thoughts, man, from the final month of this season. How are you feeling?
Mike, I am honestly speechless. What this team was able to do down the stretch is nothing short of a miracle. I mean, my goodness, just these last 10 games, we went 7 of 3, but it sure as hell didn't seem like it. There were some weird games mixed in there. You mentioned a couple of them. Losing to the Thunder without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Not just losing, you lost by 25 points. Taking on the Clippers with no Kawhi Leonard and no James Harden. Everyone was writing this off as a win. And then we get blown out early and end up clawing back towards the end, but took the L ultimately. And yeah, Zion Williamson is hard to stop. Maybe we can forgive that Pelicans game. It was a little bit closer than some of those other ones that we didn't like to see. But man, honestly, all in all, good for the Suns, man. There was the point in time after the big loss to the Clippers where Devin Booker was asked how he was feeling, and he said, I'm just chilling. And a lot of people said that they didn't like that, and that wasn't the right mentality. But honestly, came out and backed it up. They won the next 3 games and played pretty well doing it. It has just been a rocky road for this team start to finish, whether it was Bradley Beal being injured, coming back, being injured again, some guys that we expected to work out, not working out, the trades that we made. But there have been some highlights on this road, too. I mean, we got Royce O'Neal, who's been playing pretty well. Grayson Allen seems to be the signing of the offseason, and I'm sure we'll have plenty to say about that. I just think it's so weird when you look at it, how the fan base still is not 100% on board. And I would say that that sentiment goes for me as well. I'm not 100% on board with this team. A lot of people kind of have the mentality that this isn't our year and that maybe we can do something in the offseason and continue to build towards something in the future. But guys, we're here. We made it as the 6th seed. We're going to get a series against the Timberwolves to start the playoffs, and anything could happen from there. These guys have turned it on late, and if they can continue to keep it on and move that momentum forward, I'm really excited for this upcoming playoff run. I'm starting to have a little bit more faith, but we're going to have to see. It all starts against Minnesota. But Mike, looking back on these 10 games, what have your thoughts been, and what are you looking forward to?
Well, Chris, first and foremost, I don't know if I really could have said much better. Your thoughts are just where a lot of Suns fans are right now. But I will say I am very, very proud of the way that this team fought to finish this season, even though a couple of those last games within the last 5, I would say, were some head scratchers. But man, to really put it on, to stick out some of these really tough games, like coming back against the Kings in that second to last game, like, I guess, putting their foot down and really putting that second Clippers game away when they needed to. In the overall grand scheme of things, Chris, I think you still have to have some nerves just with the consistency that has come from this Phoenix Suns team over the entirety of this year, even the last 10 games. But to finish 7-3 and literally eke their way into the 6th seed and not have to play in the play-in, that's a success at the end of the day, right? And it puts you in a great spot where you want to be, having some extra rest and starting to game plan for this upcoming series against the Minnesota Timberwolves. But I think some good things that we have seen over the last month is this team has started to cut down a little bit more on the turnovers, right? Only 14 per game. They've shot more threes and at better consistency as well. 37 threes per game and about 40% from the three-point line. So, man, there's just, it's almost like the monkey is off of our back right now, right? It was an absolutely wild finish for the NBA as a whole to finish this last month with so many teams jockeying for position, and the Phoenix Suns were right in the thick of it. So our stomachs were turning, it seemed, every single night. And man, for them to finish the way that they did in that last game against Minnesota, when all they could really do was control what they could, they did it in impressive fashion. And it should give you some optimism going into this first round. But we got to take it one game, one series at a time, right? You can't get too far ahead. I know some people have already talked about favorites for this first round, and we're going to get into it in just a second. But man, still a lot of work to do for this Phoenix Suns team. And with that being said, Chris, we know that game 1 against Minnesota for the first round of the NBA playoffs is coming up this Saturday, April 20th. I got to know, what are your keys to victory for this Phoenix Suns team to take this series against the Timberwolves?
Great question, Mike. One of my keys for this series has to be for the superstars to show up. We need good performances from Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and even Bradley Beal needs to show up in all 3 of these games. We are going to ride those guys into wins and through this series. I think our superstars match up way better against the other team than their superstars do. When you look at who the Timberwolves have, you're looking at Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, and Karl Anthony Towns. I think we're a more physical team and a much more physically fit team, if that makes sense, where I think we'll be able to push the pace and control the pace more than anything. Also, if I had to pick another key, but they need to control the turnovers as well. They need to hold the possession of the ball, maybe be a little bit more patient on offense. You're going to have the ability to outrun these guys, so make sure you're controlling that pace. That's going to be my number one thing for this team moving forward.
Yeah, Chris, I got a couple of quick ones that should be on the forefront of the Phoenix Suns' mind. And the first one is to continue to put pressure on Anthony Edwards, making him think that he has to do it all, because in the 3 games against the Suns this year, he's kind of fallen flat in that regard. Only averaged 14.3 points, 6 rebounds, and 3.7 assists. He's had an absolutely stellar season. He continues to grow his game, but if they can put heavy pressure on him, I don't think he's ready to take it on just yet. Couple of other ones. Let's make sure to keep Karl Anthony Towns from being a difference maker. You know, he's going to have to get rolling just from coming off of his injury as well. So if we can keep him kind of on the back burner, I think the Suns are going to find some success. And then another big one, obviously, is making sure that Yusuf Nurkic stays out of foul trouble so he can continue to help control the boards against Rudy Gobert. We saw that in some spots in this last game against Minnesota where Rudy was really having his way on the glass. If you can cut that down, man, these could be some out of control games early like we saw on Sunday as well. So those are just a few. And Chris, as we go further into this series, I know we'll have more. But with that being said, man, this is our final recap of the regular season. It's been a wild ride. It's time to announce who our players of the year are, Chris. So I'll let you do the honors and tell us who your player of the year for the 2024 Phoenix Suns is.
Absolutely. You know that we had to do it. There were some weeks, some stretches during this season where a player of the recap wasn't warranted, but I think we absolutely need to do a player of the year. And for me, that has to be the man who carried this Suns team through the early part of the season, and that is one Kevin Durant. My goodness, Mike. In November of last year, he averaged 32.7 points per game, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists, while Bradley Beal and Devin Booker were banged up at times. He played the most minutes out of any other player on this team and played 75 games, Mike. That means he only didn't play in 7 games. And if you had asked me at the beginning of the season, the over-under Kevin Durant playing even 65 games, I probably would have taken the under. Absolutely impressive. He finished the year averaging 27.1 points per game and honestly was our most consistent player. I am highly critical of him at times. You're going to hear on the Heat Check podcast, on Pass the Outlet, me saying Kevin Durant needs to take better shots. He needs to be more assertive, but it's because of the expectations we have for him. That's becoming a big theme in the Valley, is the expectations that we have. And Kevin Durant, for the most part, has lived up to it. And again, to tie it into this playoff run, he's going to be one of those guys we lean on, and we'll need him to continue to be that pillar of consistency and honestly health as far as this goes. Mike, who did you have for your player of the year?
Well, Chris, we know that we could go with probably everybody's number 2 in Devin Booker, over 27 points per game, almost 7 assists per game, did everything he had to do, playing kind of within a different position this year. But I just got to look over all of this season, and another guy who was just a glaring light of consistency, it seemed like, for this Phoenix Suns team all year long. My player of the year, Chris, is Grayson Allen. This year, he averaged 13.5 points, 3.9 rebounds, 3 assists. He led the league in three-point field goal percentage at 46.1%. What an absolute jump up of a year for Grayson Allen. And he got his nice little payday to make sure that he's staying in the Valley with that 4-year, $70 million contract extension. Shows that he's a guy who took a little bit of a pay cut, but wants to be here and bring a championship to the Valley. I don't even know where to really begin with what impressive attitude and gameplay that Grayson Allen has brought to the Phoenix Suns this entire year, through the ups and downs, through the roller coaster. It was always a guy that you seemed could count on, had multiple 25-plus point games when we needed it, and was always a guy that you didn't have to be scared of in taking a big shot. We saw that multiple times this year. So, man, overall for this Phoenix Suns team, there are very high expectations. They won more games than they did last year, but they're still sitting in a spot where we didn't expect them to. So when I think of who my player of the year is, I just absolutely had to go with Grayson Allen for his consistency throughout this entire year and what he has truly meant for this team. So Grayson Allen, Kevin Durant, more than well-deserved. But Chris, before we head out of here, I got to know what we're looking forward to here for this first round matchup against the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Mike, we will be taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves in a best-of-7 series, and we know one thing for sure, that Game 1 will be this coming Saturday, April 20th in Minnesota. This is exactly the position I wanted the Suns to be in. No one and you're done, no play-in tournament silliness. We needed them to make it as the 6th seed, and they got it done. So the sky's the limit, and we're going to have to see how it shakes out. You know, we're going to keep bringing you a recap of the Phoenix Suns throughout this playoff run. So make sure you like and subscribe for more Phoenix Suns and Valley Sports content. For Michael Benjamin, I'm Chris Patrick, and we'll see you next time. Peace.